Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Creation Myths. Today, we are going to look at a creation trick. This is something you see from time to time, and it's kind of a fun one. It's creationists hyping their credentials with fake degrees. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not talking about the much more common phenomenon of creationists with technical degrees unrelated to evolution, genetics, or even biology claiming to be or acting as experts on evolution. The ranks of professional creationists are full of medical doctors, dentists, and so many engineers. I should really cover the Salem hypothesis in detail at some point. If you've never heard of that, Google it. Creationism is ground zero, but that's not what we're talking about today. Instead, here we're going to talk about instances of creationists just straight up faking credentials. We're talking about fake degrees from fake schools, claiming a doctorate without actually putting in the work to legitimately earn it. One thing I try to do here on this channel is respect the credentials that creationists have earned. Emphasis on the word earned. They're peddling nonsense and misinformation, often in service of providing a scientific veneer to what's really just a reactionary political project. I've talked at some length about how creationism really isn't the point of creationism, capital C, right? The point is the underlying reactionary conservative Christian nationalist political movement. But putting that aside, people like Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson, Dr. Georgia Purdom, Dr. Randy Galuzza, so many more have legitimate Ph.D.s and have earned the title doctor. And in those situations, I'm happy to use that title when they've legitimately earned it. But in some cases, professional creationists claim a doctorate and use the title doctor when they have emphatically not earned either the title nor the degree. And we're going to talk about 3 such cases. 2 of these are pretty straightforward, and I guarantee you that 95, if not 99% of my regular audience is going to know what at least one of them is. But the third one turned out to be a bit of a rabbit hole to go down and has a really interesting conclusion to it. But we're going to start with the easy one. So here we go. If you're familiar with creationists at all, especially if you've spent any time on YouTube over the last few years, you've almost certainly heard of Kent Hovind, famous for doing federal time for not paying his taxes, and in 2021 for being convicted of domestic violence against his third, now ex-wife. Hovind likes to go by Dr. Dino and refers to himself as Dr. Kent Hovind, and lots of creationists are happy to just go along with this. But given everything else we know about Kent, you will probably not be shocked to learn that his degree is fake. Kent earned his master's in 1988 and then his doctorate in 1991 at Patriot Bible University, which was at the time called Patriot University. This picture is the one for Patriot Bible University that everybody knows, but that's actually the new location after they relocated in 2004. This church is where the school was located when Hovind was enrolled. This is Hilltop Baptist Church in Colorado Springs. They didn't even have a separate building. The university was just in the church. Anyway, both then and now, this is an unaccredited correspondence school, and Kent's dissertation, which I want to remind you is for a doctorate, this is for a PhD, hilariously begins, "Hello, my name is Kent Hovind. I am a creation science evangelist. I live in Pensacola, Florida." That's not how a dissertation starts. Obviously, this is a barely disguised anti-science screed masquerading as a dissertation. If you want to experience this document to the fullest, I recommend checking out this playlist of Dapper Dinosaur videos, which I've linked down below, where he and some guests read through the entire thing. Yes, it takes a bunch of time to do that. It's exactly as bad and also as much fun as you would expect. Next up, we have Carl Baugh, famous for hyping supposed human footprints coexisting with dinosaur tracks. It's worth noting that Baugh's arguments are so out there that creationist organizations like Answers in Genesis have warned against using them. So grain of salt when we're talking about this guy as like one of the big boys, right? He's fairly prominent, his stuff is out there, but the big organizations have kind of disavowed this guy because he's just too out there even for them. Now, Baugh claims a PhD in anthropology from a school called the College of Advanced Education, which is an unaccredited Bible school. But dig a little bit further, and people have actually done this research and reached out to that school, and they said, no, it wasn't actually us. It's actually from this other school called International Baptist College that's a different, also unaccredited school. Now, the funny part of this story is that the president of International Baptist College is Karl Baugh. He got his PhD from the fake school, where he is also the fake president of the fake school. Now, the interesting thing about this is, as I was doing research on that whole situation, I found references to a different dissertation, this one for Doctor of Philosophy in Education from Pacific International University. But digging deeper, I think that's just the same thing with a different name, because that school also lists Karl Baugh as the president. So I don't know exactly what the case is here. A lot of this stuff is from like the 80s and the 90s, and there isn't like good records of these various schools or these documents online. Which, by the way, one sure sign of a fake dissertation is that you can't find it online. Like, real dissertations are part of the scientific public record. You can Google my name and read my dissertation if you want. If you're having trouble falling asleep one night, I highly, highly recommend it. But for things like Kent Hovind, Karl Baugh, it's hard to actually track down this stuff online, which is a sure sign that it's fake. So whatever the case, Baugh's PhD or Ph.D.s, right, if it's not entirely clear if we're talking about one or two, they are clearly fake, and nobody should be referring to this guy as a doctor. Now, by the way, a lot of that info comes from Talk Origins, which, if you're not familiar with it, this is a website, kind of a database of creationist claims and the rebuttals to those claims. Some of the information is a bit outdated at this point because, I mean, this is a resource from like the 90s, but it's still really useful, especially considering how little creationism has changed over the years. So I've linked Talk Origins down below and encourage everybody to check that out as like a first pass resource if you're looking to refute a creationist claim. That brings us to the third and final case we're going to look at here, and that is Dr. Jerry Bergman. This is the most interesting of the three, and you'll notice I did use the title Doctor here to refer to Dr. Bergman. There's a reason for that, and we're going to go through it. So here is a list of Dr. Bergman's degrees. I got this from the CMI website, Creation Ministries International. Dr. Bergman has been a contributor, so they have kind of a bio page, and it links his educational credentials. Okay, so Dr. Bergman claims 9 undergraduate and graduate degrees going back to the early 70s. And among those, it's not 1, but 2 PhDs, which I've highlighted right here. Before we come back to those, I want to point out that although Dr. Bergman talks and has written extensively about the impossibility of evolution, and he tends to focus on like the problem that mutations pose for evolution, the closest he gets to that in terms of his formal education is a Master's of Science in Biomedical Engineering. Most of the rest of those degrees are completely unrelated. I mean, occupational health, social psychology, behavioral science, these are not things that are relevant to talking about evolution and creationism. Now, when it comes to Dr. Bergman talking about evolution, the degree he leans on is his 1992 PhD in human biology from Columbia Pacific University, which at this point, you know exactly how this is going to go. Okay, Columbia Pacific University was a diploma mill that was shut down. It was in California, and the deal is it was originally approved in the 80s, and it was kind of approved by the state of California at the time Dr. Bergman was earning his degree. But it's not entirely clear what its accreditation status was at that time or since, because the California body that grants the approval, that organization makes clear, it doesn't exist anymore, it's defunct, the laws have changed, but the organization that existed at the time makes clear that their approval as like this curriculum is legitimate is not the same thing as accreditation that you would get from like a national accreditation agency. So it's not clear exactly what the status of those degrees were outside of California at the time the school had received whatever approval it had received from the state of California. But then that approval went away and the school was actually shut down in the mid to late 90s. It was kind of a legal thing, so it took a few years after an investigation by that body. So why was Columbia Pacific University shut down in the 90s? Here is a list of problems. This is obviously a shorter list of problems than in the full document, but this is from the Wikipedia page for Columbia Pacific University. Here are some of the problems that were identified. A master's student got credit for agreeing to continue to take country western dancing lessons. I want to be clear about this. They didn't get credit for taking the lessons. They got credit for agreeing to continue to take the lessons. There was a dissertation written in Spanish and evaluated and approved by a committee containing 0 Spanish speakers. There was a 61-page dissertation, a Ph.D. dissertation, called The Complete Guide to Glass Collecting. This was approved despite containing no hypotheses, no data, and also being a 61-page dissertation on glass collecting. I tried really hard to find this. I spent a disproportionate amount of my time working on this video trying to track down this dissertation, and I couldn't do it, which makes me very sad because I really, really, really want to see like what that looks like. And then probably the worst thing, which shows you that this is all just a scam, is you've got multiple students. I think they identified 9 students who earned their PhDs in under 2 years, including 4 who did so in under a single year. Straight up, you can't earn a PhD in less than a year. A PhD involves doing new research and like moving the ball forward in terms of human knowledge. If you are going to get earn a PhD in less than a year, you're faking it. That's not a real degree, just straight up like the end. So this school was shut down because of these kinds of shenanigans. It was very much your typical diploma mill, and Dr. Bergman's PhD in human biology is completely worthless. However, that is not the end of the story, because you will recall that Dr. Bergman has 2 PhDs on his CV. His earlier PhD was earned in 1976 from Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. That's a completely legitimate school. Now, this degree was in measurement and evaluation. Okay, I'm not exactly sure what that is in the context of a PhD program, but sure, measurement and evaluation. And unlike the fake dissertation from Columbia Pacific University, which, as is typical with fake dissertations, I couldn't find, I was actually able to track down Dr. Bergman's 1976 dissertation. So here it is. It's titled Evaluation of an Experimental Program Designed to Reduce Recidivism Among Second Felony Criminal Offenders. Basically, it's an evaluation of an expanded parole program designed to reintegrate offenders and reduce recidivism rates. That's a perfectly legitimate topic, and as far as I can tell, everything about this degree in this dissertation is above board. Except for the fact that here, and all the stuff that Dr. Bergman does, is all about evolution and creationism, and this degree has nothing to do with that. So the takeaway with Dr. Bergman is that we should absolutely call him doctor. He has a legitimate doctoral degree, but that degree has nothing to do with evolution, and flaunting it when doing his anti-evolution evangelism, as you can see in this thumbnail, for an appearance on the Logos Research Associates channel that occurred in March of 2025, is akin to when random engineers and computer scientists do the same thing. So does Dr. Jerry Bergman have a real PhD? Yes, absolutely. Is he lying when he says he has a PhD in human biology? Also, yes. So while not super common, This trick of faking credentials, not, kind of shading it and having a master's in engineering and talking about science, right? Not that kind of thing, but just straight up faking your degree, lying about your credentials. This is not the most common thing that you'll see, but it is out there and it's something to be on the lookout for. And in particular, I encourage everyone to call it out when you see it. Kent Hovind has basically been banished from YouTube, although I do see he has a new account out there, and I'm going to report it for ban evasion, and you should do the same if you stumble upon it. In fact, I'm going to link it below. Everybody should report it for ban evasion so we can get rid of that one too. That's what his previous banning was for, after his main account got nuked not that long ago. I digress. Anyway, anytime you encounter someone like Kent Hovind, who is lying about the degree they have, because they have a fake degree, call it out. Don't buy into this nonsense of calling, Kent Dr. Hovind. That's nonsense. Don't let that slide. Call it out when you see it. So that's where we're going to leave this one. Thank you all for watching. Please remember to do the algorithm-friendly things before you go. Like, comment, subscribe, share this video. And also, please consider becoming a channel member if you want to support what I do here. If you join as a member, then you get immediate access to my pre-recorded videos instead of having to wait. Thank you all again for watching, and don't get fooled.